Okay. All right. So anyway, I was one of the judges this morning, and when I was setting up for talking to you about what is IS, I decided not to do PowerPoint for a couple of reasons. One, I figured you guys were going to do such an awesome job, and I wasn't disappointed in that. That my poultry slides probably would look really embarrassing. And two, you've been sitting in front of the screen for all the morning, and I didn't want to force some more on you. So you're just going to have to listen to me and try to envision some of the stuff. I'm not really good with this because I tend to move around. NJIT wanted me to give you a brief introduction about what information systems is. And I started thinking about how I wanted to do that, and realized that information systems is one of many disciplines in computing. And in order for me to talk about it, I felt I kind of had to talk about the whole spectrum a little bit, just to give you a viewpoint where I see information systems. So, what I'm going to do for the next 10 minutes or so, okay, 10 minutes, is I'm going to talk about computing and the three disciplines we have here at NJIT. And then I'm going to try to relate it a little bit to my own career path, so you can actually see some of the jobs that went along there and how I ended up back in school. And I'll try to give you a few examples of information systems that you might be more familiar with. All right, so first thing I need you to do is imagine this sliding scale, big, long sliding scale. And on this side of the scale, my left hand, you think about computer science. And over here, all the way on my right hand, you got to think about information systems. And as you move from computer science to information systems, you're going to be passing through information technology. So just kind of get that in your mind as I'm talking about it, and hopefully by the end of this talk you'll understand why I want you to have that vision. When you think about computer science at this one end, you're thinking about, as I quote from a paper, the systematic study of algorithmic processes that create, describe, and transform data. It's basically the fundamental building blocks of information systems and information technology. Basically, we're talking about pure software here, guys. When I actually was an undergraduate, I majored in computer science, and I spent a lot of time looking at data structures and the algorithms that were used to manipulate them. And then after I graduated, I started working for a tiny, small, high-tech firm where my first job was to basically build a bunch of utilities that were used to store, retrieve, and update and delete stuff. I really didn't know what the stuff was. All I needed to know was it had a certain ID that I could extract it out of a repository and put it back in. I could modify it, I could delete it. Those were the things I had to do. But these were the basic building blocks in an industry that I had decided to join, which was a very tiny high-tech industry for computer-aided design tools that are actually used by semiconductor engineers to build all this wonderful hardware you see here. The tools that I was designing in my career were used to build computers. They were used to build the cell phones you guys use, the chips that are in cars that tell us when you crash into trees. Not that you don't already know that, but it lets somebody else know. And also medical equipment like pacemakers. This hardware is in devices that you see all around us, but I really didn't know how electronics work, which is kind of ironic because both my brother and my father are electrical engineers. So I figured I had to learn more about it. And I wasn't going to learn more about it by building just these utilities, this stuff. I really had to learn more about the electronic field and the types of tools that engineers use to build these types of devices. So my next job was to build a simulator. And of course I didn't do it by myself, I did it with a team. And the simulator was used to mimic the functionality of what the hardware engineers were designing. And in order to know what they were doing, I had to learn how electronics worked. So you could say, basically, at this point in my career, I was a software engineer. My title was member of technical staff. And I was also, I would say, based on the definition of information technologist, an information technologist. Because here at NJIT, information technology is an applied discipline. It's where the integration, design, and management of computing and telecommunication resources and services merge with a specific industry. An example that I'm sure all of you are aware of is game design and the entertainment industry, right? You all play games, video games, computer games, right? Okay. So you can think of that as an applied technology right there, and it's one of the areas that most people like to equate to when we're talking about it. Well, after building a simulator and doing a few more software projects, the companies I worked for decided to move me along, and I started to climb the corporate ladder. I ended up being an engineering manager and then a product line manager, and I finally ended up working as the general manager of a multi-million-dollar international division. I got to travel overseas. I lived in Europe for a number of years, and I had a lot of fun doing all of this. But I was no longer building software. Instead, I was really using these information systems in business and management to help me run the company. And so some of the things that I was using them was to extract information out of the data we collected from our customers to determine how to position our products in the field, or to find out what new features we needed to have, or even just to understand whether or not our customers liked our products. You know, what was good about them, how did they use them in ways we might not have imagined. I remember one of our products, which was an analog mixed signal simulator, which kind of plays with digital and analog stuff. A couple of guys in the Middle East were using it to measure the flow of oil through a pipeline, because it had enough functionality that they could mimic that. Who would have thought they would use for like something like that? It was kind of interesting to me that they were using it for things we'd never dreamed of, and we probably would not have insured for, but that's another business thing that we don't have to talk about. So some of the other things I used it for was actually to analyze the semiconductor industry, my customer base, to see what types of trends that were going on there. It's a very cyclical industry, meaning that sometimes they buy software and sometimes it doesn't matter how much you wine and dine them, they don't want to. They're focused on building product at that point. In general, within the company, we used a lot of corporate tools to also manage how our products were running, were being built. And as I said, it was an international company, so I had teams on multiple continents. And coordinating that effort and making sure that we were delivering the same thing in on the same time scale was really important. So all of these types of business and management information systems are the ones we always hear about and when you hear the phrase information system. But a broader definition would actually be the means by which people and organizations utilizing technologies gather, process, store, and use and disseminate information. I have a lot to say, so I'm going to get back to my sliding scale here.